This is a very strange picture of a penguin smoking a cigar, sitting in a bath. There seems to be smoke coming out of his ear holes. Do penguins have ears? This one does. Sitting in a bath. What's going on? It's very absurd, an absurd picture. It doesn't quite make sense. We're like, what? It's actually kind of a scene from the book, a remembered scene. Actually, I don't think he was smoking a cigar, but it's from a rather good book called Death and the Penguin, written by a Ukrainian Russian speaker, but I think it's one of the most famous recent novelists in Ukraine. And he writes an absurd book where his main character writes obituaries. Obituaries are when somebody dies, you write a notice in the newspaper. If they are famous, they get a long bit, like he was a great man who lived for other people and he always smiled at other people. He made lots of money and gave money to the newspaper, whatever. What's funny about the book? Well, there's two funny things. One, the main character has a pet penguin. He adopted the penguin from the Kiev zoo because the zoo couldn't afford to pay to look after the penguin, so he had to take it in. After communism collapsed, there was no money. Nobody had any money. That's the first funny thing. The other funny thing, or funny meaning absurd, crazy thing, he starts writing obituaries for a newspaper, and the newspaper pays him large amounts of money to write these very fancy obituaries like a novel. Um, but what happens is he starts writing those obituaries before people are dead. They want to have a stack of obituaries for famous people. But as soon as he writes an obituary, that famous person dies, usually under mysterious circumstances, like from a gangster or something like that. So it's a very absurd story, but I found it quite enjoyable. It's a what we would call dark humor. I mean, it's humorous, but it's a bit weird. I enjoyed it, and I think I read it about the time that Ukraine was invaded by Russia most recently. And I just thought it would be interesting to read something by a Ukrainian. Also, he's a Russian speaking Ukrainian living in Ukraine. Um, I don't know how old he is. He must be an old man if he's still alive. I wonder if he's written anything about the current war. I'll have to have a look. But anyway, this book, I don't know why it became famous, but it's quite well known. So well known. It's pretty good. I recommend it. I read it in English, of course. I wonder if it's translated into Japanese. I don't know if it's only in English as a foreign language. But it's quite short. And it's really one of the questions in there is what genre is this book? I think really it's a crime genre, but more than just a genre, more than just a type of, it's not your typical detective story. It's quite an unusual ideas and absurdity. So it makes it more special, more like literature, good quality writing that makes you think. Hmm, I recommend it. Okay, I have somewhere three questions. Where are we? Number one, would you like to read Death and the Penguin? Why or why not? Number two, what is the most absurd story you have heard, or you read or seen in the movie? Most absurd story. Kafka wrote absurd stories, Metamorphosis, about a man who turns into a cockroach. Anyway, number three, tell me about yours. Number three, can you write about a country if you don't speak the language? This guy is a Russian speaker who lives in Ukraine. I'm an English speaker and I live in Japan. Hmm, discuss. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much. We'll talk about this another time. Thank you. See you.